Well, if I start with a short story, Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, he was famous for many things, obviously as an economist, but as a theorist of probability and risk, as a mischievous essayist, a shrewd investor, founder of Britain's Arts Council. But one thing he was not famous for was his politeness. And once, when a Treasury paper was passed to him for comment, he wrote on it, "I would be in full agreement with this if the word 'not' was inserted in every sentence." Well, what I'm going to say is that I think the same holds for the tenets of policy analysis. What are those tenets? Well, there are 4 of them. Ensure you've got a single agreed definition of the problem, clearly distinguish between facts and values, establish a single metric like dollars or lives saved or whatever, so as to be able to compare and assess options, and the 4th one is optimize. And what I'm going to suggest is what they need to read. It should say, ensure you do not have a single agreed definition of the problem, do not clearly distinguish between facts and values, do not establish a single metric, and do not optimize. Well, there is, however, a proviso. These rewritten precepts with the nots in apply only to wicked problems. Wicked problems are those situations in which there are contending and mutually incompatible definitions of what the problem is and of what the solution is, and where those definitions don't converge as the policy process progresses. These time-honored precepts are still absolutely fine when it comes to tame problems. Well, climate change is probably the most glaring current example of a wicked problem, and it stands in marked contrast to CFCs and the ozone hole, to which, of course, it's often and erroneously compared. With the ozone hole, an agreed and singular definition of the problem led quickly and smoothly to a satisfactory and lasting solution, the Montreal Protocol, something that has most definitely not happened with climate change. Well, the bad news for IIASA, however, is that most of the problems IIASA tries to address are demonstrably wicked problems. Problems that, for the most part, IIASA treats as tame problems. Last year's summer students, I read all 50, whatever it was, outlined proposals of what they were going to work on, and nearly all of them were dealing with were problems that had clearly got a major social and political dimension to them, very, very much in the wicked problem category, and yet they were all proposing to, use the message model or whatever it is and turn the handle, and out would come the results. So that's treating wicked problems as if they were tame. So to shift ourselves across, which is what Keynes's story is suggesting we should do, we need to adopt a markedly different approach, an approach that I'd say can be summarized in a sort of mantra, and the mantra goes: wicked problems, uncomfortable knowledge, clumsy solutions. And I was thinking that actually would make a much better tagline for IIASA than the present Science for Global Insight. Wicked problems, uncomfortable knowledge, clumsy solutions. And the basic idea behind this, and it was pioneered at IIASA, idea that was pioneered at IIASA in the 1980s, as Manfred pointed out, is that there are four ways of organizing: the individualistic, the hierarchical, the egalitarian, the fatalistic. each of which, at the same time, is a way of disorganizing the other three. Upholders of individualism will see nature as benign, that's able to bounce back really from anything we throw at it. And an example of an individualism in relation to climate change would be Britain's Institute of Economic Affairs, or even the magazine The Economist, for instance, typically takes up that position. Very pro-market view. Upholders of hierarchy see nature, this is Buzz Holling's terminology, as perverse stroke tolerant, that is, stable within limits and therefore controllable once the certified experts have got to work with their models and so on and worked out just where those limits are. And then you can make sure that all economic activity is contained within those limits. And the prime example of that at the moment is the IPCC with its notion of dangerous climate change, that there's some climate change which is kind of all right, and then there are limits, and beyond those limits, it's dangerous climate change. Upholders of egalitarianism see nature as ephemeral. That is, sees that there are no safe limits. The least jolt could trigger catastrophic collapse. And an example of that would be the uncompromising environmentalist movement, Earth First, or any of those NGOs that aren't allowed inside at the meetings. Upholders of fatalism see nature as capricious, that is, nature operating without rhyme or reason. And the Russian government, and particularly its economic advisor, Andrei Illarionov, is a fine current example of fatalism. Well, the normative implication of this fourfold plurality, with the different definitions of the problem, the implication runs like this. Since each is capturing elements of wisdom and experience that are missed by the others, and since each provides a clear expression of how a sizable proportion of the populace feels that we should live with one another and with nature, it's important that all be taken account of in the policy process. And that is why we need to insert the word "not" in all those precepts of policy analysis. Because if you don't insert the word "not," then you can't really get started until you've settled on a single definition of what the problem is. And if you've done that, then you have made the policy process elegant. You can write equations, you can optimize, you can reduce to a single metric and so on. That's what I mean by elegant. But elegance comes at a cost. It's the cost of excluding all those who don't share that definition of the problem. Hence, we see the IPCC sitting there in the ruins of Copenhagen, fulminating against climate change deniers, voodoo scientists. The bearers, that is, of uncomfortable knowledge, knowledge that does not mesh with the IPCC's definition of the problem. The glaciologists who said, it's nonsense that the Himalayan glaciers are all going to be gone in 13 years' time, that was uncomfortable knowledge for the IPCC. It had been all the headlines had been all around the world saying all the glaciers will be gone in the Himalayas in 13 years. And so that was very uncomfortable knowledge because it didn't mesh with the IPCC's definition of the problem. But if you've got the word "not" inserted in the precepts, then we can shift ourselves across to clumsy solutions. Clumsy solutions are solutions that only are usually much superior solutions that only emerge in those argumentative and deliberation-rich institutional settings where each of the four voices, A, enjoys access, that is, it can make its voice heard, and B, is then responsive to, rather than dismissive of, the others. And of course, if you've adopted a single definition of the problem, then the other definitions aren't going to get a look in. Well, that's the argument. I should mention that there are a couple of books, sort of IIASA-connected books, recently. Clumsy Solutions for a Complex World, Clumsy Solutions for a Wicked World. And between them, they set out a wide range, about 10 or 12, 15 case studies, some of which are elegant failures, others clumsy successes. And also on the side here, I put a number of copies of a two-page centerfold from a recent issue of Options, which, with the help of a Himalayan example, gives all the essentials of the wicked problems, uncomfortable knowledge, clumsy solutions framing, and also another two-page interview about clumsy solutions and the whole limits to growth argument, it being the 40th anniversary this year of the publication of the limit to growth, which was in a recent issue of the German journal magazine Gaia. So thanks very much.